Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Before we get into this podcast, I wanted to go ahead and quickly just say thank you to anyone who has watched my rant video that I posted. Originally, I did put it on unlisted, so if you saw it through Twitter first, thank you. Or once I published it, if you watched it, then thank you. It was something that was on my mind for a while, and I just need to put it out there. And I'm glad to know that I wasn't alone when feeling those kind of emotions. It was just something I had to put out there, and it was a moment even for me while saying it where it's like, wow, this really is what life is like, But anyway, I'm going to stop trying to make this all depressing. If you want to go ahead and watch it, you could go back on my channel and watch it. But let's continue on with the regular episode of the 5-Star Podcast. Thank y'all very much for listening. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the 5-Star Podcast. Before we go ahead and jump into things, go ahead and remind you that if you go to blackstonelabs.com and enter code CarryGrow at checkout, I can save you 20%. I wanted to quickly get that introduction out of the way because I want to talk about this topic. So, for the past, I guess since the beginning of this podcast, I've been talking about WWE or things that are directed with WWE, etc., etc. I wanted to discuss something that I've been on the road with. I've stuck with. And that is the rebuilding of TNA/Impact. So, this topic is one that is still very debatable to this very day. A lot of people still have opinions on it. A lot of people have opinions, but haven't watched Impact in, as they say, years. Since someone left, or since someone took over, since something happened, etc., etc. I, for one, have been watching since probably a few months after I started watching WWE. So I've been with them for a while, since 2008-ish. You know that you are old and remember that when you remember Christian Cage, it was a champion in there. So yeah, you're kind of in there. Yes, at one point Christian was a champion, a world champion, an NWA champion. Crazy to think about, right? He wasn't just a tag team person. Look at that. But in all seriousness, I've watched TNA for a long time. My first wrestling show I've ever gone to was a TNA house show, and it was absolutely amazing, dude. Cannot believe, So the first thing I went to was a TNA house show. First ever wrestling show ever was TNA. And of course, my next event was WWE, then it was TNA, But a lot of people could say that the downfall started with Hulk Hogan. With Hulk Hogan and Eric Bischoff taking control. Everything's changing from no longer having the 6 sides of steel. Six-sided ring. I'm sorry. That was my fault. 6-sided ring. And changing into the traditional 4-sided ring. To, I don't know, there's like a whole list. There's everything where it says, Hulk Hogan ruined TNA. I don't know, I'm surprised I haven't read a conspiracy somewhere that it was WWE's plan to send in Hulk Hogan and Eric Bischoff to ruin TNA. I don't know. Another issue that people could say was whoever was in charge thinking it was a bright idea to have Impact go up against WWE on Monday nights. Which, that's something you can't argue against. That probably wasn't the best move for them to do, was try to go up against the big dog. But I guess at that time they thought they had the good competition. And it just goes to prove that they did have the big dogs, because the majority of them are now in WWE. and developmental, and then the main roster not being used properly. I'm talking about Eric Young and Bobby Roode. And then having some people eventually leave from WWE, go explore themselves, and make their way to TNA, which TNA ended up starting to become, in a lot of people's eyes, the retirement home for some apparent reason. Or the place that one person that didn't succeed in WWE goes to go to TNA because they will push him harder, which I don't know if that was the excuse for Christian, but you know, I keep bringing up Christian because I feel like that's the main one people will find shocking. You know, Booker T, he was a champion already. But if you think about someone like Christian, someone who's been known as a tag team guy, jumping over to TNA, and he's given all this awesome gold and shots and matches, you know? So basically there was a huge downfall for TNA for a long time. I still watched, I still supported, I still went to the shows, etc. But there's no denying that during that time, their crowd was still as electric as it was whenever it first was around. There is no debate whenever it comes to that. And eventually, Hogan got away, Bischoff left with him. And they were just like, now what? What do we do? So they left us with Dixie Carter, which wasn't good either. Of course, whenever you're younger, you think wrestling's wrestling. Oh, but as you get older and you actually think about things, you think, wow, that was horrible. Do I have to even name an example? I guess I have to. One of the top things people could talk about during that time was the whole, what's her name? I guess starting off with the AJ Styles and, the AJ Styles and Dixie Carter relationship circle thing that they had, but then had AJ Styles be with someone else. What was her name? I don't even know. Claire Lynch or something like that? I don't know. And he apparently had a child on the way for, I don't know. Something, I'll admit that was stupid. And we are human, so we have to look back on the bad more than the good for some apparent reason. And in this case, for a lot of people, the bad outweighs the good. And I don't know why, but it did in this situation. So then, not to mention, Global Force Wrestling. The big promotion. I have to discuss this. I have to. I don't want to. The big promotion coming from Jeff Jarrett. The next big global company who ran shows on baseball fields. Oh, man. I mean, no denying, though. They did bring in good talent whenever they hit. But what do you call that? Did they have a war? Did they morph together? Or what happened? I'm confused about that part, honestly. I mean, they brought in Brian Myers and in case you didn't notice, Kurt Hawkins and other big names, but it was what was it? Yeah. I'm really confused at that part. Whenever thinking back on it, it's like what was it a war? Was it just a mashup? I don't know. TNA was still called TNA Impact, but it had Global Force Wrestling symbols and the green ropes, and they brought back the six-sided ring, which people were happy about the most. They brought in, as I said, Brian Myers. They brought in PJ Black. They brought in names that continued to stay for a while, or still is with the company, like Trevor Lee. I think Andrew Everett came along with there. Congo Kong. It's stuff like that. You know, people like that. But it was still such a confusing time, and then Jeff Jarrett got himself in trouble, and then I guess now I could just skip forward a little bit and talk about present-day Impact. No longer called TNA, just called Impact. It's ran by Anthem up in Canada. I was about to say Canada. Up in Canada. And if you ask me, they That's why I'm calling this the recovery, because they are trying to recover everything that they can that was wrong with Impact. You know, people like Scott Moore and people that work backstage like Abyss now. Like them, they are trying to help fix everything that was wrong, trying to give TNA Impact a clean slate, as if nothing ever happened. Nothing ever happened, which is, in my opinion, the only thing that you could do is pretend that nothing happened. Of course, they still have some of their issues that they're trying to figure out, but I feel like Impact, I know it's a hard thing to remember. Impact is trying to get back on the top of their game, and they're slowly starting to do so, showing off some great talent of modern day wrestling. And I think the only problem is they're stuck on Pop TV. That channel doesn't necessarily that channel can't be caught by everyone. For the longest time, my friend Austin, who I did a review with, couldn't watch it on TV. He had to watch the highlights of it on YouTube. So I think the only thing that could honestly get in the way of them currently would be their position whenever it comes to the TV channel on Pop TV. And I'm not going to say, oh, that's an easy fix. It's not like they could just be like, alright, we're going back to, I can't say Spike. They're not Spike. What are they now? Paramount Network or something like that? They can't just be like, alright, we're coming back. They would have to figure something out, but they seem like they're very happy on Pop TV. Their ratings are definitely starting to grow, as what I'm reading, as finally reaching over 100,000-ish. Is that what I read correctly? Over 100,000? I don't know. I don't know if I'm saying the right number or what. But their ratings are starting to finally go up and boost up. And a lot of people say they haven't watched in a while. Well, if you ask me, one of the best matches of the year happened between Sami Callihan and Pentagon Jr., Pentagon Dark, Pentazero Miedo, whatever his name you prefer to call him, and their match. And it was absolutely wonderful. That match was match of the year, showing that TNA Impact is on the top of their game. That the people behind there know what they're doing this time and not just throwing stuff out there. Having amazing storylines, including one at the time of the recording this, Eddie Edwards. He's gone completely mad. That's his thing now. We have Moose. We have Killer Cross, who's doing Austin. I was about to mention Austin Aries, but he hasn't been on since Bound for Glory. I guess that's one bad side that has happened. But they have top names and amazing matches every single week. And they're allowing their talent to expand a lot more. They're allowing their talent to be more on the independent circuit. If you want someone in their show, you could email them and be like, hey, this is who we want. Alright, good. There you go. I mean, it's Brian Cage. I can name the people who is helping this thing grow. One of the top tag teams, if you ask me, is currently in there. First off, not just the Lucha Bros, but we have LAX. Different from the OGs, just to let you know. We have LAX currently doing amazing. Forgive me, I'm adjusting things. But TNA is on the rise once again. And that is something amazing that they needed. They needed the right people to run the show. They needed the right roster. And that's exactly what they have, in my opinion. They have the right people helping in front of the camera, behind the camera. And some could, go ahead and debate on this, but even on commentary, Josh Matthews and Don Callis together, they're pretty good together, if you ask me. The only thing that as I mentioned, the TV channel, but hopefully sometime in the future, once again, they could have the ability to go ahead and start doing their live shows again. I mean, house shows, like not just through Twitch partnered with someone. I mean, like a legitimate house show again, because I love to go into those, especially whenever they were in my actual city. I wouldn't have to drive an hour 30, no offense, drive an hour 30 to have to watch. I don't know, just a thought. But let me know what you guys think. I think Impact is personally, in my eyes, there's only one direction for them to go, and that is currently up. They are currently just being able to go up. I mean, they're guys being able to wrestle on Chris Jericho's cruise along with guys from Ring of Honor and New Japan and stuff. This is showing that they are on the rise to, hopefully, their old level, if not a level higher than they were in the past. Just a few more things they need to fix or figure out, in my opinion, but they could do it. I truly believe it. So guys, I'm going to go ahead and end the podcast here. Thank you very much for listening. I am out. Thank you so much for listening to the 5-Star Podcast. I'll see you all later. Goodbye.